Hey all, it's Blackbird again. How you doing? Hope you're doing good. I'm still working on smiling. Unlock so many things in my neck and everything else that it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to process. It's getting used to a whole new. But I just came from my VA clinic. Um, Last Monday. It's today's Tuesday. It was a week ago, just over a week ago, that I was kicked out of my doctor's appointment because my doctor felt uncomfortable. It's not the first time that this clinic has treated me in this way. I'm agitated. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm depressed. Doesn't make me for a nice person to deal with. But I try, and I try to do what I need to do in order to get my health care back on track. And what happened to me last Monday put me in a state of distress for a good 24, 36 hours that my very life was at risk because of the way that they kicked me out of my session. The first time that I had an interaction with this clinic that I was treated this way, I had been to this clinic for, at least a year or two under different doctors. I left the area for 6 years, almost 7 years. And when I came back, it was an all new staff. We didn't have a primary care doctor even, but they were doing video conferences with doctors from other cities. And, the staff was still training and getting up to speed at the clinic, but there were no doctors. So we finally got a doctor, and, the whole time I'm dealing with this, that's the biggest thing, has been waiting and waiting and waiting to talk to a doctor about something that. So during one of these periods, I had been given this suggestion of polyvagal by my therapist at a VA counseling center. And I had wanted to see my doctor about it and talk to her. And I didn't even have a doctor at that point because we hadn't even had a doctor assigned. Then a doctor got assigned, and they were trying to get caught up with all of the patients and new appointments and video conferencing and everything. So it was months and months and months that I languished, waiting to talk to a doctor about something that might make my life a little bit more livable. And I had gotten an appointment at one point. I think I had called and gotten them to move it up. And the person that scheduled it for a date. And so on that date, I got on the bus. I had to walk to the bus, maybe half a mile or a mile, something like that. Got on the bus. To take the bus downtown, transfer to another bus, ride that bus to about maybe an eighth of a mile away from the clinic, and then walk to the clinic. I show up at the clinic 2 hours early for my appointment because I wanted to make sure that I was going to get there in time, and I didn't know what the bus is, and sometimes you miss a bus or something like that. So I showed up 2 hours early. And the lovely lady behind the counter, when I gave her my information to check in, said, "Oh, well, you're not 2 hours early. You're a year early." A year? I'm sorry, what do you mean? And she laughed. She laughed. A genuine laugh. She thought it was funny that whoever had scheduled my appointment put down the wrong year. And so I showed up a year early for an appointment that I had been waiting months for. And they wouldn't do anything. She wouldn't go talk to anybody. She wouldn't make any phone calls. She just said, "I'm sorry, the doctor's not seeing patients today. You'll have to reschedule." So I was upset. Upset that my health care had been put on hold because of a scheduling mistake, that the person that I had to talk to had no interest in even trying to rectify the situation or mitigate in some way. I don't know what she could have done, but a better attitude would have helped. So when I was leaving, I slapped the door on my way out. I got a phone call the following day from from a representative from the Office Against Violence in the Workplace. They claimed that I had broken the door, knocked it off its hinges, and they had to have a technician come in and service it and all this other stuff. But when the lady heard what I was dealing with and why I was upset, she promised to get me back on track in the VA healthcare system. I never received another phone call from her. I had answered my phone too quickly for it to show up in my caller ID, apparently, because there was no register of even receiving a phone call that day. And for the longest time, I wondered whether or not I had even imagined that phone call, because it was the only positive light that I had for months of dealing with the VA. That somebody was going to take interest and get me back into better health care and get me on track with doctors. And I never got a call back. It wasn't until I got a backdoor person that ended up looking up my record and finding out that there was, in fact, somebody who had called me. And when I tracked that person down, she said, "Oh, well, I found out that you had gotten another appointment scheduled, so I just didn't bother following up. I thought everything was fine." I thought I was losing my mind. That was the first occasion. The second occasion, I showed up after weeks of being in pain and muscles tightening down, and my neck was getting so tight that it felt like it was going to burst. It felt like my head was going to crush under the pain. And I went in after having called earlier the week prior, left a message for the clinic nurse. The clinic nurse never called me back. That weekend rolled around, and that weekend I really came the closest that I've come in probably a decade to giving up. So that Monday I went into the office, and the guy at the desk informed me that the lady that was supposed to return my call, not only did she not return my call before the weekend, she was on vacation for the following week. So I slammed my fist down and I was mad on the counter. I didn't threaten anyone. I was upset and frustrated because I was in a lot of pain. And the gentleman that works for the VA stood up, turned around, walked away from me and said, "Sir, I can't help you with that attitude." And he wouldn't even return my calls to say, "Hey, come back. I'll be nice. I'm upset, but I'll be nice." And he wouldn't even do that. So I ended up not getting any help. And this is a problem that keeps coming back and back and back. And people that feel upset or uncomfortable because they're not doing their jobs ends up the veterans suffer. And this has got to stop. If they don't feel comfortable, then we need to reevaluate what the hell's going on. But this is not acceptable. More later.